Hello, I'm Richard Gartee. Thank you for joining me in this rather unusual way for readers to meet an author. I write fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. My novels are in the historical fiction section, but often a novel represents more than one genre. For example, my Lancelot books are historical fiction since they're set at the start of the Dark Ages, just after the fall of Camelot. But they also belong in the genre of metaphysical fiction since the characters are principally concerned with self-realization and enlightenment. In a lighter vein, my Ragtime Dudes series is about three New York dandies who in 1904 visit the St. Louis World's Fair and decide to open an emporium in New Mexico art colony of Taos. The problem is they don't know anything about business. This lends a humorous note to their exploits. So again, while the novels are historical, being set in 1904, they're also in the humor genre. In fact, Ragtime Dudes in a Thin Place won the Royal Palm Literary Award first place in the category of humor fiction. The third book in the Ragtime Dudes series, Ragtime Dudes Meet a Paris Flapper, brings the characters from my first two books in the series forward to the start of the Roaring Twenties. It also won a Royal Palm Literary Award. I'll talk more about that book in a moment. But first, let me confess, I never cared for history class in school. It seemed all we did was memorize the dates of wars and the names of famous people and places. So then why do I set my novels in the past? First, the dilemmas, yearnings, and even humorous situations of today are often easier to face when considered from the safe remove of days gone by. Second, my history classes skipped what I now find interesting. Details about activities of daily life in a time the reader may be unfamiliar with add texture and engagement to a story. I learn a lot just by researching a period. For example, my decision to send my Ragtime Dudes to the World's Fair. Today, World's Fairs have lost their purpose, but let me take you back to 1904 to provide some context. The early 1900s is a pivotal time. The Victorian era is over. Ragtime music is the newest craze. America and the world are undergoing cultural and technological changes that alter everything. But how does the public discover all those newfangled things? Imagine, if you will, that though already invented, radio broadcasts only Morse code. No music, no talk shows. At the fair, Edison will introduce the kinescope, but as yet there are no movies or newsreels. Television? Forget about it, not for another 50 years. So the principal means of learning what is new are magazines and newspapers, unless you attend a World's Fair. World's Fairs showcase every product and many nations, providing visitors their first glimpse of a Japanese geisha, or perhaps they see their first automobile or hear their first musical record. The St. Louis World's Fair was the largest in history, covering 2 square miles. At night, the fair dazzled the eye, ablaze in electric lights. Visitors to the fair left awestruck by the world-changing wonders the new century was bringing. My Ragtime Dude characters are no exception. They head to New Mexico full of enthusiasm, determined to share the marvels they'd seen at the fair. After reading Ragtime Dudes in a Thin Place, my father so enjoyed the book he asked me to write a sequel. In considering a sequel, I thought, what's the next period that people instantly think of as wild and free? The Roaring Twenties, obviously. The name says it all. But there are darker elements too. The world has experienced huge losses in World War I, followed almost immediately by a pandemic which infected a third of the population worldwide. Large numbers of soldiers returning from the war suffering from what today we call post-traumatic stress disorder. In World War I they called shell shock. On top of that, we had Prohibition, which turned out to have the opposite effect on society that its proponents expected. By 1922, the characters from my previous book, Morgan, Jack, and Abigail, are pushing 40. Precocious teens, Peaches and Cherry, are in their early 30s, and Abigail's son Cyrus is in his 20s. How will they represent the roaring 20s, yet also convey the dark aspects that brought the 20s about? First, it needs a flapper. The flapper stands as one of the most enduring images of youth and new women in the 20th century. It is viewed as something of a cultural heroine nowadays. However, back in 1920s, many Americans regarded flappers as threatening to conventional society, representing a new moral order. Cherry seemed perfect. In Ragtime Dudes in a Thin Place, she and her sister are sassy, sexually active young women. I imagined that while living in Paris, she became sophisticated, embracing the flapper lifestyle. Next, there's prohibition. That's a given. In the 1919, the 18th Amendment made it illegal to manufacture, sell, or transport intoxicating liquors for beverage purposes. But possession was not illegal. Jack, always a beer drinker, sees a loophole. He makes his own beer at an abandoned cabin nobody owns. And once he gets the beer home, well, possession is legal, right? For the issue of shell shock, Cyrus was the right age to have served in the army and returned home dysfunctional. I have an acquaintance who is a veteran of Vietnam with a severe case of PTSD. He generously shared with me very specific details about his condition, which I then incorporated in describing Cyrus's shell shock. In the aftermath of World War I, Cherie's seen the streets of Paris filled with veterans suffering shell shock just like Cyrus. And she may be the best person to understand what he's going through. On the issue of death, I turn to the book On Death and Dying, which describes 5 stages of grief terminally ill patients or people who have lost a loved one. For this novel, Morgan has terminal cancer and his best friend Jack refuses to accept Morgan's fate. Over the course of the novel, the characters move through each of the stages Dr. Kubler-Ross defined in her book: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I don't want to leave you with the impression that the book is mulled. It's not. My characters have always approached life with humor and continue to do so, even as they face these challenges. Now I'll read a brief excerpt from Ragtime Dudes Meet a Paris Flapper, but first a little background. I mentioned earlier Jack doesn't sell his beer. His business is transporting goods from the rail station to merchants in Taos in his Ford truck. While the Model T was very popular, it didn't operate like other automobiles, and Abigail didn't like driving it. So she purchased a Pierce Arrow and has Cyrus drive her around as a ploy to get him out more. In this chapter, Morgan's pain has grown worse and his surgeon prescribed a stronger medication. The pharmacist had to special order it and his son will deliver it as soon as it arrives. Abigail and the others have left on errands and asked Jack to stay with Morgan. Hours went by, but the boy never arrived. Abigail hadn't returned either. Jack came over to Morgan. "I'm sorry, your medicine's late. I telephoned the apothecary and they said the boy left an hour ago." I understand where that boy could be. Now, there's probably a good reason for his delay. If he's having a petting party with some Chiquita while you're suffering, I'll throttle him. Oh, don't go overboard, Jack. What if he is? We had our fun when we were his age. Why are we waiting? We'll send Cyrus to get it. He's not here, Morgan said. He drove Abigail and the girls to town. Oh, yeah. How did he forget that? Maybe you can call Cyrus and have him bring it home with him. What, Jack said? You think there's a magic telephone that somehow allows you to call people in their cars while they're driving? Morgan laughed. I guess not. Wouldn't that be great, though? We can take my truck. I don't know why Abigail asked the pharmacist to deliver it in the first place. Let's just go get it ourselves. Thanks, Jack, but I don't think I can ride in the truck anymore. It jars my insides, what's left of them. I'd go by myself, but I don't want to leave you alone. Then just calm down and forget it. No, I'll telephone Doc Martin and see if he has anything he can bring. Jack ran to the house to make the call. He returned shaking his head. No one answered. A gangly teen appeared at the end of the driveway walking his bicycle. Jack ran to meet him. About time. I'm sorry, Mr. Diamond, my bicycle got a flat tire. I can see. Then there was this bull. Bull? Yes, I saw a farmhouse across the field. I went to see if the farmer could patch my tire, but when I was halfway to his house, his bull saw me and, well, I barely made it back to the road. Okay, but where's the medicine? I lost it. Jack turned an unhealthy shade of scarlet. Lost it? Dropped it somewhere in the field. Well, why didn't you look for it? He's a very large bull, sir. Jack pointed at Morgan. That man's in terrible pain. Don't you realize how important this is? I do. I'm sorry, sir. Well, why didn't you call your dad to have him bring more? I'm going to, but you're the only house on this road with a telephone. That's why I walked the rest of the way here. Jack stalked off to the house. He returned looking glum. Your dad said he only got the one package he sent with you. The boy began to quake and his eyes welled up with water. For God's sakes, Jack, Morgan said, don't be so hard on the kid. You're going to make him cry. The boy looked at Jack and sniffed. You know anything about bulls? No, but I'm about to. If you can fix my bike, I'll go back. We haven't got time for patching tires. Get in the truck and show me where the field is. He turned to Morgan. Sorry to leave you, amigo, but it seems unavoidable. I'll be right back. Morgan waved him away. I'm not going anywhere. Jack drove out the driveway, and as he turned onto the road, he saw the Pierce Arrow coming toward them. He braked and waved his arm out the window. Cyrus pulled up beside Jack's truck and rolled down his window. Perfect timing, Jack shouted over the engine noise. You guys stay with Morgan while this boy and I search for his medicine. Search for it? Long story. Ask Morgan. Jack waved goodbye and took off. As soon as he got the Ford into high gear, he increased the throttle as far as it would go. The Model T's 20 horsepower gave it a top-rated speed of 40 miles per hour, and Jack pushed it for all it was worth. What's your name, son? Billy. Hitting bumps at that speed with no load in the back nearly lifted the Ford off the ground. Jack had the steering wheel to hold on to, but Billy was getting tossed around and clung to the edge of his seat for dear life. Slow down, Mr. Diamond. You're going to miss it. Call me Jack, Billy. Okay, but you passed it. What, that field back there? Jack throttled down, slammed on the brakes, raising a cloud of dust behind them. He made a three-point turn and headed back the way they came. Excuse me, sir, but you drove by it again. On purpose. That's the Lopez Ranch. I'm going to get us some help with that bull. Jack turned off the road and raced down a long lane, skidding to a halt in a patch of grass between the house and the barn. A woman taking laundry off the clothesline turned and squinted at him. Jack? Jack waved and turned off the truck, set the brake, and got out. Afternoon, Mrs. Lopez. Is Carlos around? Hi, Jack. He's in the barn. Just then, Carlos came out. Jack, is everything all right? Will be. I need your help, though. The pharmacist boy was bringing Morgan new medicine when your bull chased him. He dropped the package somewhere in your field. Doesn't know exactly where. If you could pen up that bull and help us search, I'd appreciate it. Morgan needs it pretty bad. Of course. Carlos put 2 fingers to his mouth and made a loud whistle. A half-dozen children of various ages appeared. Kids, help Jack find something he lost in the field. Jack, I'll take care of the bull. Jack motioned for Billy to get out of the truck. When he came over, Jack said, they're going to help. Tell them what we're looking for. Billy held out his hand. It's about the size of my palm, a small brown bag folded in half and taped shut. Jack looked at the brown dirt field covered with brown grass. Great. He had to put it in a brown bag, did he? Okay, kids, form a line arm length apart and we'll walk the field in a grid. You can read more about this book or any of the others by clicking on the book cover thumbnail, then on Amazon's Look Inside feature.